At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 454 of Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine, and a huge shout out to patrons as always for everything. This is going to be a special episode. This is going to be different. This week I am I'm in Anaheim, California for the National APCO Conference, and a couple months ago I did an episode as a guest on an amazing podcast called Tell Us a Good Story with Kevin and Steph Mason, and it was a lot of fun. They were excellent, and we had talked about possibly having this episode come on Within the Trenches podcast as well, because they're asking me these questions and everything about my story, and it'll also help while I'm there for that week. So I have this episode ready to go and everything. So this is awesome, and thank you both to Kevin and Steph for the opportunity to be able to share my guest appearance on your show on my show. It's going to be awesome, and I hope you all enjoy it. It was excellent being with them again on their podcast. You need to check it out. It is very good. Again, it is called Tell Us a Good Story, and you can find full on episodes at kevinandsteph.com. Once again, that is kevinandsteph.com. And make sure to check it out. My episode, I believe, was episode 131. So without further ado, here's my guest appearance on their episode on my show. It's so funny to say, but again, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this, and please make sure to check them out. Again, it's kevinandsteph.com for Tell Us a Good Story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Tell Us a Good Story. Today, we have the privilege of talking to Ricardo Martinez, founder of the I Am 911 movement and host of the podcast Within the Trenches. Now, we found out that if you want to hear some good stories, Ricardo is the man to talk to. After working 13 years as a 911 dispatcher, this man has experienced a lot. So what was the craziest phone call he ever took? What was it like when he took an incoming call and it was someone he knew or even a relative. And what's the funniest 911 story he has ever heard? Here's a hint. It involved a fellow dispatcher walking a caller through the process of giving CPR to a baby. However, the caller failed to mention this was not actually a human baby. So wait until you hear that one. Friends, we cannot wait for you to hear this very fun conversation with Mr. Ricardo Martinez. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Stephanie.
And during our marriage, we have dealt with an electrocution, a brain tumor, brain surgery.
Then doctors telling us that children were not in our future, followed by miscarriage, and then Kevin's cancer diagnosis.
However, today, we live a life completely healed and restored with 3 healthy children who doctors said were not possible. And we're here to tell stories that inspire, give hope, and brighten your day. Welcome to
Tell us a good story.
Steph.
You were so excited.
I am.
You're so excited to have this man on our show.
I am. And I have a feeling this is going to be just so much fun.
Well, you know why it's going to be so good.
Why's that?
Because Joe Serio recommended him.
That is true.
And if Joe Serio recommends somebody, you know it's amazing.
So that's a high bar for our next guest. No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Well, friends, our next guest is a professional speaker who was a 911 dispatcher for 13 years. He is the creator and host of Within the Trenches podcast and founder of the I Am 911 movement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Tell Us a Good Story, Mr. Ricardo Martinez.
Oh, Ricardo! We are so happy to have you.
Yes,
definitely. I'm excited, and Joe Serio is one of my homeboys. He's a very good guy. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm excited to be here. Thank you. It's an honor.
And I can't get over how professional he sounds. Like, usually we're like,
his voice.
Can you put some headphones in? And as soon as he came out, I'm like, oh, Ricardo. Like, do you have your own radio show? Because you sound so good.
Like love songs with Ricardo here. His voice.
Yeah. Late night with dispatch. Here we go. Yeah. So much fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you have been a 911 dispatcher for many years, right, in your career.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please share the story with Steph of how you first got involved in this field, right, as a 911 dispatcher? Because this is not something normally a guidance counselor will steer someone toward, right, on career day or anything like that at school. So can you share that story?
Yeah, of course. So I was originally living in Michigan. I'm out of Southwest Michigan, and I graduated and decided to leave the state of Michigan and move to Florida. Actually, I went to visit my mom, my grandmother, and my younger sisters for just a couple of weeks, and it turned into a 3.5-year stay.
And what was the name of that city?
Yeah, it was Frostproof. Yeah, the city of Frostproof.
Frostproof, Florida?
Yes.
Yes.
Because when I read this, I was like, that sounds like a made-up name. Is that like a Hallmark movie, Christmas movie type town? But that's real.
Yeah, it's a real town. It's in Central Florida, and actually, there's actually a story to that where the town used to be called Keystone, and I don't remember what year it was, but there was a winter that came into Florida, if you can call it winter in Florida, and all the towns around Keystone ended up getting frosted over, and their orange crop was destroyed, except for in Keystone. So they changed the name to Frostproof. I swear to you, it's a true story.
It's a history lesson. I love it.
Yeah. So I ended up going to visit my family, and after being there for a little while, my mom comes in and goes, "You think maybe you want to find a job?" And I thought, oh yeah, maybe I've stayed a little bit long and everything, so I'll go ahead. And so I'm looking for retail jobs in management. Find nothing. And then my mom tells me that my cousin's husband knows the chief of police. And at the time, I thought, I don't understand. And she goes, well, they were having a conversation is why I'm telling you. And they're hiring 911 dispatchers. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about 911 other than like Rescue 911. A huge fan of that show growing up. So I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and try. And I go into the police department, and the chief of police is there. The lieutenant is in there. I'm freaking out as it is because I don't know what they're going to ask me. And they have all of these questions that they are throwing at me. And I'm firing back as fast as they're throwing them at me. Now, years later, I understand that they were doing this on purpose to see if I could handle the pressure of all of these questions that are going to be coming at me on 911. And I thought, man, I'm doing amazing. Well, then the chief comes to one last question. And he says, what types of skeletons do you have in your closet? And I had never been asked a question like that before. And I remember kind of shrinking into the seat. And I thought, what do I say? And I said, well, what do you mean? So that's what came out. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And he goes, come on, Ricardo, what kind of skeletons do you have in your closet? Because we're going to find out. And without skipping a beat, I said, well, I stole a car once. And he goes, what? And he starts laughing, looks back at the lieutenant. Lieutenant's laughing. And then he turns around with almost like he was my father and I was in trouble. And he goes, no, seriously. And I said, no, seriously. And then they said, okay, well, you need to tell us. So it was a civil situation. And I don't know if you know, but if you're like a cosigner on a car and stuff, and there's like a dispute going on and you have the car, that person has to take you to court. You can't file a stolen police report or anything because it's not stolen. And I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, they're going to have to take you to court. However, if you get the car back, we can't do anything to you. And I said, okay, because they'd have to take you to court. So that's what happened. I ended up going and getting my car back. So really, I stole my own car back. Yes, I stole my own car back. But I told this story to the chief of police. And for 2 months, I didn't hear anything from them. And I thought, oh, I messed up. I shouldn't have told him that story. So just one day out of the blue, I'm going to doze off, right? I'm about to take a nap and the door swings open and it's my grandmother who barely speaks any English. So she's yelling at me in Spanish. The police are here. The police are here. What did you do? And I was like, wait, what? And she goes, what did you do? The police are here. And I was like, I don't think I did anything. So I end up going to check it out and it's the chief. Again, frostproof. It's a small place. There's 2 traffic lights and a McDonald's. That's how big this place is. And I go out there and I say hello to the chief and I said, what's going on? And he goes, well, I just stopped by to see if you still wanted the job. And I said, well, I thought I screwed myself out of that job because of the story that I told you. And he's like, oh, no. He goes, that was something else, but now we like you. It was just the background. They just have a long process. So that's what he told me. Yeah. Now, a lot of times when you're getting ready to start a new job, usually you start in a week or 2 or, whichever. And that's what I asked him. I said, so do I start next week? And he goes, you start tonight. Yeah. And I said, no, really. And he goes, you want the job, don't you? And I said, no, I do. I assumed it would be next week. And he goes, no, you start tonight, midnight shift, 10 to 6. I was like, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So at that point, you go into work.
Yes.
Are you I'm being trained, right? Like you're just not like putting me in there by myself. Like you're actually training
phone.
Me. Yes. You're not just giving me a headset and saying good luck. So how was that process?
Oh man. So I ended up going to take a nap because I was going to be working midnight shift. So I went and took the nap after all. And I go in that night and I meet my trainer and he shows me everything that's there. And he's telling me about what I'm going to be doing. And I'm just like, okay, this sounds cool. And 911 goes off. He takes the phone call and I'm simply observing him as this is going on. He finishes the call, turns around, looks at me and says, okay, you're next. That's exactly the sound I made. Yeah. I kind of freaking out, like instant sweat. Totally. And I thought he was joking and I started chuckling and I was like, no, seriously. And he goes, no, seriously. And I said, wait, no. Hold on a minute. There's nothing else. Like there's no other training. You're just throwing me to the lions. And he goes, look, the only way you're ever going to learn how to do this is by jumping in and taking these calls. And he basically what he had told me, and it's something that I've stuck with from that time, was what it takes to do this job is 1, being human and also kind of having that thick skin, but mostly common sense is what it's all about. Common sense and being human. Because when people are calling you on 911, they're not calling because they're in the best state of any mind or nature or anything that's going on. They're experiencing their own nightmare right now. But there's also a lot of calls when people call in and they're saying, I know this is 911 and I apologize. However, can you tell me the parade times?
Oh, no.
No, serious. Yeah. Parade times, fireworks times. Do you know when such and such city is going to be having Halloween, like trick or treating? And I'm like, you called 911, right?
And Ricardo,
Yes.
you're age 20 at this point, right?
I'm 19 going on 20.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Here's the thing, Ricardo. Me at age 43 would not handle
You're
this
still
well.
not ready for
I'm still not ready for that
911
moment,
dispatcher.
right? Because Ricardo, if someone did that to me, even today, age 43, I would get on the phone and be like, sir, why are you yelling? Calm the flip down.
Right.
When someone's yelling at me, I don't handle that well,
No.
right? So you being 19 years old puts in a different perspective as well.
Absolutely it does. Just with life experiences alone that you have to pull from when you're older. I can't imagine being
Stay
19.
calm.
Yes. What was your first phone call like?
Parade.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm standing there. I'm still looking at everything. And then I sit down and my heart is just pumping. The adrenaline is going. And I've always explained taking a 911 call like getting in a fast car, slamming the gas and letting go of the steering wheel, because it can be that chaotic. And the moment you think you've taken the craziest or most outrageous, the dispatch universe, they end up saying, hold my drink. And
Yeah, I can beat that.
Yes, yeah.
They're like, challenge accepted. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So I'm sitting there, this is 2001. I'm 19, almost 20, and I don't know what's going to come next. And I'm sweating, freaking out. And then the phone rings and he goes, okay, go for it. I pick up the phone and say my thing, Frostproof 911. Where is your emergency? And I hear, oh, I'm sorry. I somehow butt dialed you. I'm like, oh, thank you.
All right. They were done with that one.
That was my
All
one.
right. You're welcome.
Yes.
It's your turn now.
Friends, we just want to take a moment here to say thank you to all you loyal listeners.
You guys, we just found out that Tell Us a Good Story is now in the top 1.5% of all podcasts worldwide. And that is because of you guys sharing with your family and friends on social media and giving us positive reviews on all the podcast platforms.
And if your friends ask, just tell them they can get our entire catalog of episodes at kevinandsteph.com or wherever they like to get their podcasts.
Thank you guys so much for listening to Tell Us a Good Story.
So have you ever taken a phone call then, and it's somebody you actually know personally?
Yeah. So when you work in the area that you live in, or especially grew up in, you are eventually going to end up taking phone calls from people that you know. So I spent about 3.5 years at Frostproof Police Department. And then I moved back home to Southwest Michigan, finished off my dispatching career at Allegan County Central Dispatch. It's the county that I grew up in. So the whole west side of the county, I pretty much knew everyone. And when someone would call in and say, I'm in such and such area, I could picture exactly where they were at. And I could tell them, landmarks of where they're at if they were trying to get to a certain place. But, I would take phone calls from friends that I went to school with. I never said who I was because you end up walking a certain line, right? So one of two things will happen. You'll give your name and they will feel comfortable with you and they will tell you everything because they know you. Or you tell them your name, they know who you are, and then they stop talking because now you know their business and they're embarrassed. Okay. So if it were friends like in high school or something, I wouldn't usually say who I was. Plus, everyone in school called me Rich. So if I said Ricardo, they would not know. So with family, though, I would say, this is Rich or this is Richie, because, my aunts and uncles would call me Richie. And a lot of times they found that comfort if they were calling in. Now, one time specifically, it was 2007. All of my family pretty much was in Michigan because my grandmother was in hospice care and she was pretty close to leaving us, to passing away. And I'm in dispatch. And it's about 3 a.m. My family's been sending me text messages, just letting me know, she's getting closer, she's getting closer. And we had already decided that if she were to pass while I was in dispatch, somebody would come in to take my spot and I would be able to go. So again, it's about 3:30 in the morning. And my partner on phone says, Ricardo, I'm going to go to the break room really quick. And I said, okay, there's nothing going on anyway. Now, that is almost like tempting fate. And in the dispatch world, it's like saying the Q word or quiet.
Yep.
And you're right, it's like a jinx.
It
And
absolutely is.
you're just tempting fate. And so my partner goes, and no later did the door shut to the break room, but the phone rings. And I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it, because I never hesitate to pick up the phone. But this one time, it felt different. As soon as that phone rang, the hair in the back of my neck stood up, and I hesitated, and I waited for the information to pop up on the screen, and it was my mom's cell phone number. And all I could think of was, what are the odds that I'm the one who's taking this call? So I pick up the phone and say, Allegan 911, where's your emergency? And it's my cousin on the other line. And she says, Richie? And I said, yeah. And she goes, Grandma just died. And again, I thought, what are the odds that I would be the one to take this call? Now, my grandmother had lived with my parents from the time before myself and my siblings were born. So she was there for us through the beginning. So it was almost like it was meant to be, that she was there for me in the beginning and I'd be there for her at the end.
So a lot of these calls, though, you don't know what happens, right? Like, is there a moment where you get cut off, or it's like the movie Take It or something, and the phone ends right in the middle of a conversation?
Yeah, and you're hearing everything.
Right, you're hearing everything in the background.
But you're trying not to make noise. So,
Yes.
how is that situation?
There are a lot of those times where people are calling in. Again, they're living their nightmare, right? And you hear them say, I think someone is coming to the door, whether it be a domestic situation or someone is breaking into the house. And I'm trying to get them to a spot where they're safe, but also that they have a way to get out of wherever they're at, in case, the person comes in, maybe it's safe enough for them to go out the window, anything like that. Or, if it is a domestic situation and the husband or wife or whichever side is coming into the room and they don't know they're on the phone, I have them put the phone down. So then it's just me listening. So here's where it gets even more crazy. You have to be able to listen to everything that is going on. So I call it dispatch ear. So I'll be in dispatch. I'm taking this call. I've told them to put the phone down. So I'm not only listening to the two people that are in the room, but I'm listening to everything in the background. Do I hear something shut? Do I hear them pick something up? Now, at the same time, I'm also typing everything that is going on. But also, I could be the only one who's on phones. All of the calls that are coming in, it's like triage. What do you do? Who do you stay with?
Who do you prioritize?
You have to make, you have to make these decisions. The other scenario I've given people when thinking about what it's like on the other side is you've got 3 incidents that's going on. You've got a injury accident. And people are calling like crazy because, of course, everyone has a cell phone. Everybody wants to call in to say there's an accident that's going on. So you've got this accident, right? You've got people heading out to them. Now you have another call that comes in. It's a domestic disturbance, husband and wife. It's verbal only at the time. You have to put them on hold. You got another call and it's a medical. Now you're giving CPR instructions. So while they're going for a certain number of compressions, you have a moment to go back to that domestic to check on them. Well, now there's a weapon involved. Who do you stay with?
Oh,
and
my God.
And you have to decide. So you stay with the one that has a weapon involved. You've got officers going out there and you have to keep the scene safe for not only the officers that are going out there, but to try to keep those two separated as much as possible while those other 2 calls are going that already have help going out to them.
I chose correctly, just so you know. I totally had it in my head. Like, stay with that one.
Weapon.
Stay with that.
The weapon.
The weapon. Stay with the weapon.
Yes.
Don't leave the weapon, Ricardo.
Exactly.
Okay, so you do have a million stories from dispatch, from the podcast that you do, from your 911 movement. What's one of the funnier calls you've taken or you've heard from another dispatcher?
So from another dispatcher, I go around to different public safety conferences and I do something called Imagine Listening because I want people to do just that. The first 30 minutes of that are I Am 911 stories where dispatchers get a chance to share stories that they may have been just keeping inside, have not had the chance to get that out. They're in a room full of 911 dispatchers and call takers that have dealt with the same thing. So they feel comfortable in sharing these stories. It's emotionally intense. There's a lot of people who are actually crying, getting these stories out because they've had them held inside for so long. The last 30 minutes, because I don't want anyone to ever leave from that session just kind of feeling down, we do what's called open mic. And we share the funny side of 911. So we start out emotionally intense, but then we end with laughter. And it's always a good time. So one of these sessions, it's just a packed room. And a dispatcher starts telling this story. And in the audio, like you can hear it in the beginning because the person who's telling the story is very animated as they're telling the story. So we're all kind of laughing right away. But there's a point where you can tell everyone is almost nervous a little bit because we're like, should we be laughing at this right now? So the dispatcher ends up saying, I take this phone call from this guy and he starts saying, my friend's not breathing. My friend's not breathing. But the way the person is saying it, again, they're animated. We're laughing at the way they're saying it, not at what the person was telling them, but how the person is explaining it. But then the guy ends up saying, my baby's not breathing. My baby's not breathing. And it is at that moment that you hear all of us start going, like, should we be laughing at this? So they continue to go through the story as, officers are headed that way. EMS is headed that way. And the person keeps saying this and the dispatcher's like, oh crap, I can't believe this is going on. Like someone needs to get out there faster. Well, the officer gets out there, beats EMS, and comes over the radio and says, dispatch, slow everyone down. And the dispatcher who's telling the story is going, why would we stop that? This guy's baby's not breathing. And then the officer gets on the radio and says, it's an iguana. They had been doing CPR. They went through CPR and everything with this person on the phone thinking that it was a baby, but it was an iguana.
I can't.
Now, technically, if you think about the caller, that was the caller's baby per se, But yeah, until the officer got out there, nobody knew that it wasn't a human.
It's a crazy pet owner.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say dog. Honestly, I thought you were going to say dog. Iguana just takes it to another level, Ricardo.
And they're doing CPR.
Yeah. And they were doing CPR on the iguana the whole time. I don't know if the iguana made it or not. Yeah, I'm not sure. We don't always get that closure. but that was one of the things. And I just, oh man, up until that point, I had not heard a story like that. So we are all just dying laughing. And I just, everyone was clapping. I was like, thank you so much for sharing that. Like that was amazing. Man. Not what I expected. Did not expect for it to be an iguana.
Okay, like you got to end the meeting on that.
Yeah, you're
you're not going to be able to trump that story at a conference. It's
funny because all these people are going up for open mic and they just turn around and sit back down. They're like, nope,
I'm good.
That did it.
That took the cake.
Yes. Yep. I think that was the last one too.
It would have to be. It has to be.
Yes.
Okay. Any more off the top of your head, Ricardo? Now that you're rolling, man.
I know. Yeah, no. There's so many different stories. So I'm working in Frostproof. This is at the police department in Florida, and it's the middle of the night. I'm working midnight shift, and I've been on my own for a while now, taking all different types of calls. And the officer keys up, and he has a traffic stop. He runs the person. The person's got a warrant. The person runs. So we end up having to call the sheriff's department for their canine officer to come out so that the canine can help look for the suspect. Again, it's late at night, middle of the night, very dark, and the dog ends up tracking behind a house where there's an above ground pool. And the dog is barking at the pool. And they're looking around. They're like, what is going on? Why is the dog over here? So they lead the dog somewhere else. The dog comes back a few different times. Then they look closer at the pool. And what do they see? They see a straw right above the water.
No.
The suspect was in the pool the whole time, breathing through a straw.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, they brought the suspect in and he was all wet. And I said, why is this person wet? What happened? The person was in the pool the whole time. Now, dumb criminal or clever criminal?
Right?
Right.
But also, who has a straw? Right?
Where to get the straw from?
Who has a straw?
Yes.
to do this.
Right.
Is that his plan the whole time? Like, hey, I'm on the run. I'm going to go find a house with a pool in it, jump in.
Oh
Right.
my god!
Or did the person ransack some garbage and was like looking and decided to MacGyver it and was like, I'm going to breathe through this straw.
Right.
Hey,
The dog, obviously the dog was a smart one. Yes.
Dog's amazing.
Oh my gosh. That dude could play some hide and go seek. That's for sure.
You know what that
Yeah.
reminds me of? This could be an episode on Dog the
Oh,
Bounty Hunter.
yes.
I could see Dog doing something like this.
Ricardo, we had Dog the Bounty Hunter on with us, episode 72, I think, almost a year ago. And one of his most memorable catches was a guy was inside of a tree.
Yeah. Tree, or he had like covered himself
and he was like
leaves
yes,
and old grass.
and he was like they found him.
Yeah.
And he was like
Oh,
in
no
part of
way.
the tree. Yes.
It was crazy.
So kind of the same thing.
Oh, man.
That's a good one. If you like what you hear, please tell someone about us. As soon as this episode is over, go tell your spouse, your closest friend, a parent, a coworker, or share one of our posts on social media.
However, if you don't like what you're hearing, please do not.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody.
Just disregard this message.
Don't worry about
Forget
it.
about us.
Yep.
Go on with your merry day.
And to get more information about us or our entire catalog of episodes, be sure to check us out at kevinandsteph.com. Thank you for listening to Tell Us a Good Story.
So, Ricardo, you started a podcast called Within the Trenches. And this is where you give other dispatchers an opportunity to share what they've gone through, day in the life, some of the stories they've gone through. By the way, Steph, he just dropped episode 442.
Oh, my
mind you.
goodness. Ricardo!
Yeah.
So with this being 131.
We were happy with 131. Like, we got 131.
Oh, my, yes. 442. Holy cow.
Oh, that's
good work,
awesome.
sir.
So Thank you.
Congratulations.
What's one of the more memorable stories then you've had on your podcast over the past however many years?
There is a lot of them that have been out there. I mean, hard ones, funny ones, but I think one that really sticks out. There's a gentleman, his name's Steve Souter. He was the former director out of Fairfax County in Virginia. His first day, and I believe this was episode 80, and you said 442. Yeah, there's 442, but this one is episode 80. And his first day in dispatch was the day that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
Oh.
And Steve is in DC during this time. Now, he ended up getting hurt and stuff, and he wanted to continue in public safety and stuff. He ends up going into 911 to dispatch. And that first day, they brought him in, and the way he explains it, he's like, you know how to use the radio, you know how to write, here you go. And that was basically it. He got thrown in kind of like I did. But the assassination happens. A few hours later, the DC riots break out, and he's on radios his first day. And I believe he didn't leave dispatch for a few days, for that long. He didn't want to leave his post. So listening to him tell this story was just extraordinary. Like, it was to the point where whenever I do these episodes with people, I try to compare, some of my stories with theirs and stuff. There was no way that I could compare with what he was telling me. So I just let him talk. And then when it was finally my turn, like, I didn't know what to say. It was basically, wow. I mean, how do you come back from that? Like, what do you say other than what was it like for you? So he was explaining everything, but that's probably one of the ones that really sticks out is that one. But again, they're all a lot of powerful and impactful stories that people are sharing and just finally getting it out. For me, it all started from my own struggle in dispatch, and it was therapeutic for me to write about it. So then when I was introduced to podcasting during my master's in new media journalism, I fell in love with this form of storytelling. And I thought, if it's therapeutic for me to share my stories, maybe bringing other dispatchers on to share their stories will do the same thing. And the rest is really history.
Oh, that's awesome.
So our listeners are going to be non-911 dispatchers, of course. So when you go to a conference or you're doing a professional speaking event, what's one of the stories that you share with the audience, whether it's inspirational or funny or something you've experienced yourself? What's one of the stories you share with the audience?
So one of the main stories it goes back to when I first started dispatching in Frostproof. And it's where I relate to everyone to let them know, I've been there with you in those struggles. This is my first that I'm going to tell you about, and one that sticks with me. But I share it because it not only makes it easier for me, but it also helps people know that they're not alone, that they may feel like they're the only one dealing with this certain situation, but they're not. We've all done it before. So when I was going to be on my first day alone after training, and the chief of police is getting ready to leave, he says, "You think you're going to be able to do this?" And I said, "Man, I got you. I got you." I said, "Don't you worry, because you are listening to the radio almost 24/7, and you just live down the road. So if anything happens, if you hear me struggling, I know you will be here." And he goes, okay. Now, after that moment, we hear a car screech up. We hear the door open and a lady screaming. And the door opens to the police department. And in the police department, there's just this small lobby area. It's no longer there. The county swallowed it up. It's just a patch of land now. But lady runs in and she starts yelling, "I found him. I found him." And, this whole time I'm thinking my first big emergency is going to be on the phone, but it's not. It's right in front of my face. And the chief turns around and kind of holds her arms and is saying, what are you talking about? What happened? What's going on? Now, again, this is a small city, so everyone knows the chief. The chief knows everyone. So he knew her. He was calling her by her name. And what had happened was her and her husband were separated, and they were trying to figure out if they wanted to stay together. And she finally decided, yes, I want to make this marriage work. So she goes home to tell her husband, and she found that he had hung himself. He didn't make it. So I have the chief of police and the officer on duty. I have everyone going to the house. The house is just diagonal from where we were at. And it's just her and I in the police department now. So what do? You be human, right? So I go around the corner and I go into the lobby and I'm next to her. And I said, "Is there anything I can do that I can help you in this moment?" And she wanted family. So I called her family. They showed up. They were there with her for a little bit, and then they left. And I am just sitting there by myself thinking, wow. So the chief comes back. The officer on duty comes back. And one of the biggest things in dispatch is we don't get closure, right? And with this situation, I knew what happened. I had that closure, but it still bothered me. And I guess I was trying to figure out that person's mindset. And the officer was standing next to me, and he had the note that the person had left. And I kept trying to look at it. And he saw me and he goes, "Do you want to read it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know why." I said, "But I just feel like I need to." Basically what it said was that he wished that they could have made it work, that he could not live anymore knowing that he would no longer have her or their children because they were getting divorced, and that's not what he wanted. And he wished it would have worked out. And I remember after I read that, all I could think was, man, if you would have waited just a little bit longer, I probably wouldn't be sharing this story right now. But whenever I go back to Frostproof, I always visit that plot of land where the police department used to be. And I look over to where that happened. And it will always stick with me. But I go back there to reflect on where I started, because I'll never forget where I started, but also that first hard call. And I tell people about it because I don't want them to feel alone. I want them to be able to open up and talk about their calls, because I used to bury mine. And it was a hard thing. And I found out it wasn't the best thing to do. So I've been sharing stories ever since, and it's helped a lot of people.
Oh, well, your stories have led to an I Am 911 movement. And I'm so impressed with how that took off, Ricardo, several years ago. Can you share the story with us of how you started that movement and how it went to different countries right after you started it?
For sure. Yeah. So, it's 2016. I'm out of dispatch now. I'm on the private side. working for a company, a 911 solutions company in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And while I was working for them, now 2016 comes around, and these two big 911 organizations are trying to fight for the reclassification of 911 dispatchers, because for 911 dispatch, they're under the clerical class or administrative assistants, or, commercial dispatchers like trucking or taxis or anything like that. And they were trying to get them reclassified into the protective class, which would be with all of law enforcement, fire, EMS, lifeguards are even in there, just everyone. So one of the things that they were looking for that I noticed were stories. And I thought, well, I've been telling stories for like 5 or 6 years now. I'm going to insert myself into this battle somehow and see what I can do. But I wanted to raise awareness in a way that people hadn't really thought about before. And again, by sharing stories, but just a glimpse into one of the calls that I had taken or that others had taken. So I created a meme. And it was just, it's a picture with a full moon, because we all know crazy things happen during a full moon. So that's why I used that. But also, it was a glimpse into a call that I had taken. And all it said was, I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. Hashtag I am 911. I put it out there on the podcast page, and I asked other dispatchers to do the same thing so that we could raise awareness our way for this reclassification, to show the difference between commercial dispatchers and emergency dispatchers. So that day, my son and I were going to go visit my mom. We were in Florida during the time, and they only lived about 10 minutes away from where we were at. And my phone is just going off and going off and going off and going off, notification after notification. And my son goes, "Dad, what did you do?" And I said, "I think I struck a chord." And it was enough that the notifications from the app stopped working, because there was too many that were coming in.
Wow.
And I'm freaking out, because I'm like, oh, geez, what did I do? But I think what really set it off was me telling people, if you don't know how to create a meme, just send us the text and we'll do it for you. So people were just sending in story after story after story. And it was almost like the entire thin gold line, which is what dispatch is known as. Officers are the thin blue line. Everyone has their line. Well, dispatch is gold. And it was almost like the entire thin gold line unified, came together for this cause and sharing stories, because that weekend, I am 911 was trending at number 3 on Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I didn't even know that. Like, I was just focused on Facebook, but other people were telling me that it was trending on Twitter, and then I went and looked it up. I was like, oh geez, this is crazy.
That's a big deal.
I click on the hashtag, and there are people that have nothing to do with public safety saying the stories of I am 911 are just so gut-wrenching but so powerful. And then a friend of mine out of Canada sends me a message that weekend saying, you need to look up on Twitter because it went across the pond. And I thought, what? So in the UK, it's either 112 or 999, 999. And they were sharing stories as well. It was I am 999. And then there were a few that were coming out of New Zealand as I am 111. And then a lot coming out of Australia that is I am 000. And these stories are just going all over the place. So at that time, the amount of reactions, shares, all of that were over 37 million.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
People just sharing stories. But then on top of that, there were callers, and they were sharing their side of it, saying, if it wasn't for this dispatcher, I might not be here today. So thank you. So through the power of storytelling, people were starting to heal, but they were also starting to learn what it is really like to take a 911 call.
Jeez. Well, listeners, for more information about Ricardo, you can go to his website, withinthetrenches.net/podcast. You can go to his Twitter account at 911podcast. Also his Facebook page at Within the Trenches Podcast.
Yes.
Ricardo, God bless you, sir.
Yes.
For what you do, the impact you make in your community, in your industry, is nothing short of inspirational.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for what you do. And thank you for saying yes to us as well and coming on here and taking time with us to share these stories. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been an honor. It was a lot of fun being here and talking with the both of you. Thank you so much.
Friends, we want to encourage you to please follow us wherever you listen to this, whether it's on the Apple Podcast app, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or one of the other platforms.
You guys, it's completely free. And while you're there, feel free to give us a rating or a nice review.
Thank you for listening to
Tell Us a Good Story.
Man, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Again, it was awesome. An excellent experience to be on Tell Us a Good Story with both Kevin and Steph. And we just had so much fun. Even right in the beginning, before we started recording, it was so funny. And even afterwards, I told them a few stories and everything. After we were off air, and I think one of them was actually possibly used in the episode. It was the one about the criminal who was running, who just happened to have a straw in their pocket, I guess. I don't know, unless they found it in the garbage or something, one of the two. And we're trying to evade police, and ended up finding a good hiding spot in a pool. That's right, in a pool. And was breathing through a straw. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. But either way, it was good stuff. If you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/withinthetrenchespodcast. And recently, I ended up going to the YouTube channel that I have and updated everything. So all of the episodes, video episodes, that is, all of the ones for patrons have been there, but I noticed that I kind of fell off putting the other ones up there as well. So everything is caught up. They are all up there now and available for your pleasure to watch, and your entertainment and everything. Some amazing, powerful stories, and this episode will be going on there as well. So make sure to check out and look out for that. Also, if you are looking to support us, you can do so at patreon.com. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. A lot of bonus content going there, and also started up the Discord channel again. And I had not used it for a while, and then someone recently jumped on there, said hello, and then people were talking about reviving it. So here we are with an AED trying to revive the Trenches, which is the Discord channel, Discord server that I have on there. Just a community for everyone to go on there and to be able to talk public safety stuff and everything. So make sure to check that out. Again, that's the Trenches. And I don't know. I don't think I have a banner on here. Nope, I don't. You'll just have to go look for it. It's on the website. Again, it's withinthetrenches.net. You can check everything out there. Also, you can see this on YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter, and then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.